Hello everyone and welcome back. Today I'm working on this Boland's lawnmower with a 4.5 horsepower Briggs & Stratton engine on it. Question is, does your mower sound like this? Now if your mower is surging, or the correct terminology is hunting, this was just a slight surge on this engine. When I originally got this, it wasn't running at all. I cleaned out the gas tank, which wasn't that bad, but the carburetor was full of all kinds of debris. I cleaned it out, put it back together, but I didn't have the part on hand that I needed. I'm waiting for the part to come in, and once it does, I'll be pulling this carburetor off again. I'll be showing you how to take it off, what to look for when you take it off, and the part that I'm going to replace to keep it from surging. Now, I cut grass with this mower the other day, and it cut fine. It was surging a little bit more than it was right now. I don't know why it's surging less, but it is surging, and I want this mower running right. When I get the part, we'll be back, and I'll get into taking this carburetor apart and replacing the piece that's needed. Alright guys, I'm back, and I have what I need to finish this job. As I mentioned earlier, I took this carburetor apart, cleaned out the gas tank, cleaned out the carburetor, put it back together, and it did work, but it had a slight surge to it. So I ordered a carburetor. So I ordered the part I needed. It came in, we're ready to go. To do this job, you just need some basic tools. There's a 3/8 socket and a 1/2-inch socket. An extension would help, ratchet, Phillips screwdriver, common head screwdriver, and a needle nose pliers. To get started, the first thing we do is take off this air filter, place it aside. Under the air filter, there's this gasket. You don't want to lose this. Remember to put it back on. If you don't put this on, dirt will be sucked into the carburetor, bypassing the air filter, and you'll be doing this all over again. Next we have the bolt that's on the left hand side of the carburetor. There's only 2 bolts that hold this on. Now we have the 3/8 right up front. Now you have these springs up here that control the governor and the carburetor. You don't have to touch those springs. Take a picture of it, record it, just in case something should happen and they get disconnected, you'll know how to put them back together. It's important on how these go back. Now to get the carburetor off, just disconnect this tube, pull out nice and easy, and there's a clip. That's all it takes to pull the carburetor out with the fuel tank. Now there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 Phillips head screws. I'm going to remove these screws and pull the carburetor from the tank. Once you loosen up these 5 screws, the carburetor pulls right out from the tank. Now you got to be careful. On some of these carburetors, there's a spring that's attached to it. You don't want to lose that spring. This particular carburetor doesn't have that. I'm just going to dump these screws. And also, when you're putting this back on, there's an O-ring in here. Make sure that O-ring, there's 2 rings. Make sure they're attached before you put it on. Otherwise it's going to suck air and you're not going anywhere with this. When you clean out this carburetor, it's fairly simple. This is all you have. I used a little thread tie wire, popped it through these holes. Down here you have a screen that comes off. This is usually clogged. Clean that out. Replace it. This tube, this pickup tube, this is also gets clogged. These could pop out, but if you could clean it just by using some carburetor cleaner, I wouldn't play with this. I would just clean it off, leaving it on. And here's where the problem lies with this one. This isn't working properly anymore. It's played out. Gasket still looks like it's good. I don't see any tears in the gasket. If I get this off. This still looks like it's okay, but the kit came with a gasket and a fuel pump, so we'll put the new one on. Remember how it came off? The gasket goes first, then the diaphragm. The gasket goes on first, then the diaphragm. Okay, when you're putting this back together, you just want to make sure this is lined up right and that you're not pinching this off, because this is very thin, and if it wasn't lined up, the screw could push through it either. And this doesn't look good. Okay, I thought this was attached. If this was attached, it won't work, because this flap has to be able to move up and down. Right, everything looks good here. As far as the gas tank, when you take this apart, clean out the tank, dump what's ever in there out, and right in here, this is where it picks up the fuel. There's usually dirt. Now I cleaned this tank out, I cut some grass with it, and even though I cleaned it out, I used some old gas to clean it out. It was clean gas, it was just old. I cleaned it out with that. I used an air hose to blow it out. It was dry. It still had some sediment in there. So I'm going to dump this out, because that little bit of sediment builds up after a while. It'll clog those filters that I showed you previously, and you'll have the same problem again. Once that's taken care of, pop it back in. It might have been easier just to turn the tank over onto the carburetor. As a matter of fact, that's the direction I'm going to go. Okay, now you want to make sure these holes are lined up. See, they're a little off. You could straighten them out a little with the screws. But you don't want to pinch that diaphragm underneath. Try and move this along for the sake of the video, but you don't want to rush this. There we go. Oh. Got one and not the other. There we go. When you tighten these screws down, you want them snug. You don't want any air leaks. But the carburetor is plastic, and you don't want it to warp. Get one screw in, slightly snug. Go to the other side. Come back. You want to do like a crisscross pattern so you don't warp this. Now that they're all in there, here's where we tighten them up. Again, this is plastic. You want it snug, but you don't want it so tight that it warps that plastic. This is easier if you have this down on the table, but to get it in camera view, I'm holding it up for you. Okay, just checking them out. Good. Okay. This one almost got by me. Okay, we're good. Now to get this back on. This link gets attached to the hole. In this particular case, it's easy. There's two holes, but one's the bigger one where it's going to go in. And to put it on, you simply tilt the carburetor and loop it into this Z-bend. Meanwhile, you make sure the gaskets are in here, and here's where your needle nose comes in handy. I don't know if the camera's picking that up. Yeah. Just to hold it for you. There we go. Once you have the linkage connected, just slip it right in. Don't forget your tube. This out a little bit. You also want to check that this tube isn't cracked. If it is, replace it. This primer bulb was okay. Didn't have to do anything with that. Now just to tighten it up. Go. Don't forget that gasket before the carburetor. Doesn't look like much, but it makes a big difference. Check your air filter, make sure your air filter's okay. These you can wash, let them dry, oil them a little bit, put them back on. If it's really bad, just buy a new one. They're not that expensive. Tighten this down. I'm going to gas this up and see how we made out. And one important note, I didn't do it. You know what they say? Do as I say, not as I do. When you're working on these engines, any engine, it's good to disconnect the spark plug wire and push it to the side. We didn't go anywhere near the blade, but it is a good safety procedure and one we should follow. As soon as I gas this up, we'll start it up and see how we make out. Be back in a minute. Okay, and now for the test. Well, still not running right. I'm going to check out those springs on there and see what's going on. It sounds a little rougher now than it was when I had the old gaskets on. Back to the drawing board, and as soon as I find out what's wrong with it, I'll be back. Well guys, I looked it over, played with the springs a little bit, make sure everything was working okay. And I started it up, I cut some grass, and it ran fine. I'm not sure what caused that surging and the stopping originally. Maybe there was a speck of dirt in there and it just blew itself out. I'm going to start it up again, let you see that it's going. Once that's done, I have to change the oil. You might hear it tapping just a little bit. The oil in there is pretty dirty. I usually don't change the oil unless it's really bad, until I find out these are working. With that said, let's get it going. It cut grass, kept running, didn't surge, stopped it, started right up without any problems. An oil change, a clean up, and maybe sharpen that blade, and she's ready to go. So guys, that's a wrap. If you found this video entertaining or useful, let me know by posting your comments down below. Be sure to give it a like, and if you haven't done so already, subscribe. Hit that Joe Z button right up there to subscribe to my channel. Be sure to hit the bell so you'll be notified whenever I upload a new video. Until next time guys, stay safe and stay well.